Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Caleb Calhoun here. We're still having technical difficulties with the show, but we do have some interviews we could share with you, and we would like to share with you guys that we conducted last week at SEC Media Days that did not make the cut throughout our YouTube channels for the week. So we're going to show a few of those. I'm going to start actually with an interview that I did. You guys, I think, will find this very interesting. It's with College Football Playoff Executive Director Bill Hancock. Bill Hancock is entering his last year with the College Football Playoff. So I think this is one that you guys will be very, very intrigued in. I'm going to share the interview now. Let's get it started. Caleb Calhoun here, back with Off the Hook Sports. We have College Football Playoff Executive Director Bill Hancock, who is entering his final year with the event. Thanks for coming, Bill. How's it going?
Caleb, thanks for having me on. How's it going for you?
Oh, great. Nashville, the hustle and bustle. I'm actually from Memphis, and when I was younger, Memphis was the bigger city. And so it's shocking how big Nashville's gotten now.
Nashville's booming. My goodness.
It is. So talk about this being your last year running this college as the executive director of this College Football Playoff, what that means for you and what it's built and become.
Well, I have 18 more months to go, and I decided when my contract runs out in February of 2025 that I just have some more things I want to do in life. I want to travel. I want to do some writing. I told a reporter earlier I want to learn Photoshop. That's you have to dream, and that's it's time for me to realize some of my dreams.
Could you talk about what this thing has grown into? Because I know it was very experimental when it started in 2014, and now it's going to 12 teams next year. Just talk about the growth and how you think this has changed the landscape of college football overall.
Well, we knew back when we started that this was going to be successful. I think it's probably exceeded our expectations. It's a phenomenally popular event, great attendance, great viewership on television. And I think it's been really good for college football. I will say this, we wouldn't have a CFP today if we hadn't had the BCS before. The BCS was here for 16 years, and it really set the table for us to move on into the CFP.
Yes, and I've argued, I want to know what your thoughts on this. People always like to complain about the BCS, but I thought largely it worked.
It worked. For the first time, the BCS gave us number 1 and 2 meeting each other in a bowl game. And if you know your history, you know before that would only happen if 1 and 2 were from the Big Ten and Pac-12, or maybe one of them was independent. And the BCS guaranteed that we would have number 1 and 2. So yeah, it worked. And like I say, we wouldn't have CFP if we hadn't had the BCS.
We talk about, so obviously after this year, you won't have to deal with the headache of a 12-team playoff. And how big of a deal is this? How exciting do you think it's going to be that, finally college football is going to have December games? They're going to be the conference championship, and then there's going to be December football that everybody's going to love in college.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I'm in my last 18 months on the job, I'll be working a lot on setting up how the 12-team event's going to operate operationally. There's a lot of operational details that has to happen. Joe Fan really doesn't worry about that. What Joe Fan worries about is what is the bracket going to look like, and where's our team going to be. And it's all very, very exciting.
Do you guys have plans to advertise a bracket like the NCAA tournament bracket?
You bet, absolutely.
Figured you would. What do you say to people who may be a little concerned that they don't, the thing that people cherish about college football is how every Saturday matters. And they have the worry that, maybe those really big games in the regular season won't have the same magnitude with the 12-team playoff. What do you say to those fans?
Yeah, I say they will matter. The selection process will be the same as now, with the committee making decisions based on your strength of schedule, based on how you did during the season. And so those games absolutely will matter. The difference will be more teams will go into November with a chance to make the playoff than now. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and so the argument from your end is it actually makes more meaningful games because there's going to be more teams with meaningful games to play in November.
Yes. And just think about the conference championship games, how meaningful those will be. Because remember, 6 of the teams will be the best 6 conference champions. So the tournament will start with conference championship weekend.
Where does this go, do you think, long term, given the fact that the conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten are absorbing so many teams, and the Big 12 and Pac-12 are jockeying to be the next one. Do you think at some point it'll have to reduce the number of automatic conference champions if these conferences keep getting bigger?
Well, we don't have automatic conference champions.
I mean, top six
it's all
conference champions.
It's the top six. There's not been any talk about changing that. I'd be surprised if that were to change. 6 is a good number.
With conferences getting big, I'm sure and I know this is something you don't have to worry about at all. You don't have to worry about it even now, but the SEC going to 16 teams, the Big Ten going, and then they have these divisions that they're getting rid of. Do you think eventually the conferences, to crown their champions themselves, are going to have to adopt some of the CFP model with strength of schedule and things like that in the future?
Every conference will decide how to choose its champion. I feel like it's right to do away with divisions. I think that will help the conference to ensure that their best team or one of their 2 best teams gets into the CFP. So I think they're doing the right thing there. They all have different tiebreakers, as you know, and they're doing what's best for the conference.
And last thing I want to bring up, doesn't it feel to a certain degree that expanding the playoff is a bit of a almost throwback to tradition, because now all the major bowls matter, whereas they don't have to feel like consolations, right? If it goes forward like this.
Well, for sure, in the first 2 years when the 6 bowls will be hosting the quarterfinals and semifinals, those games are going to matter more than ever before. We don't know what will happen starting in 2026. We don't know whether the games will be in the bowls or not. I hope they will, but there's a lot of sentiment to maybe leave them on campus, put those games on campus also. But for sure, in the first 2 years of the 12-team event, the bowl games are going to be extremely meaningful.
Congratulations on everything that this has become, and pending retirement 18 months from now, and well-deserved. Thanks a lot for doing this.
And when I learn Photoshop, I'll come teach you how to do it.
Oh, I appreciate that. I struggle with that every day. With Bill Hancock, Executive Director of the College Football Playoff, this has been Caleb Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports. That was Bill Hancock, Executive Director of the College Football Playoff. Right after speaking with Bill Hancock, funny enough, I then spoke with Heather Dinich, which I'm trying to pull up for you guys now, Heather Dinich of ESPN, who covers the College Football Playoff. We had a lot to say because she said the SEC is more likely to have 2 teams in the playoff than the Big Ten this year. I'm not so sure, and we kind of had a little back and forth on that. We're going to give you guys her thoughts and why she felt that. Pulling up Heather Dinich now. Just give me 1 second, guys, to get this going. Thanks for bearing with us again on this. We've had some, again, just technical difficulties, issues with the show, but I'm pulling up Heather Dinich now and enjoy the interview with her. Again, this is a special Monday presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Okay. Caleb Calhoun here with Heather Dinich of ESPN. Heather, this is Caleb Calhoun, Off the Hook Sports. Thanks for doing this.
Sure, my pleasure.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the college football playoff. I spoke with Bill Hancock earlier and this year, and it's obviously expanding to 12 teams. But we wanted to talk about something you spoke about earlier in the week, which is the SEC versus the Big Ten. Who is more likely to have 2 teams in the college football playoff? Mm-hmm. Now, I would believe the SEC because it's tougher, but don't you think the Big Ten, because it's so top-heavy, is actually a little more likely?
So the reason I say the SEC instead of the Big Ten is because Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State are all in the Big Ten's East Division. So somebody there is going to have a really hard time surviving and getting into the playoff as the second team, whereas in the SEC, you can have Georgia winning the East. Then in the West, you've got Alabama and LSU. We'll start there, right? Alabama plays Texas. LSU plays Florida State. Both of those teams can have a win against another Power 5 conference champion because Texas can win the Big 12. Florida State can win the ACC. So let's say Georgia wins the SEC. Alabama's sitting there with 1 loss and a win against a Texas team that wins the Big 12. LSU's sitting there with a loss to Alabama, but a win against the ACC champion, Florida State. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, no, I see exactly where you're going.
Because you're going to have Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State win the East, probably win the Big Ten. The runner-up in that league doesn't win their division. there could be a wonky three-way tie, obviously, but it's going to be much harder for that second Big Ten East team to join the winner.
Yeah, what totally shocked me was you had the SEC at above a 50% chance of squeezing in two teams, I think.
Well, and they've also done it before. This isn't making college football history. Georgia 3-peating is making college football history. The SEC getting 2 teams in, that's like yesterday's news.
Yes, and with the 14 playoff, okay, here's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Could the SEC get 3 in?
So, yeah, if you have Georgia winning, it all hinges on Georgia, in my opinion. Because if Georgia loses to Tennessee and doesn't win the East, you could potentially eliminate the entire East if Tennessee doesn't win the SEC. I mean, think about that. Tennessee beats Georgia, goes to play in the SEC championship, loses. Do they take Alabama and Tennessee? Maybe. There's a really good chance. Or they could take Alabama and LSU. It all depends on what some of those other Power 5 conference champions do, I think.
How far behind Georgia do you think Tennessee is right now? Because we know last year that was a 27-13 game, and it really was a 45-0 game if Georgia wanted it to be. Do you think Tennessee could, being at Neyland, even though Georgia is still more talented, could actually make that game a little more competitive, or then they have a case to sell?
I do, and I expect it to be more competitive. If there's a team in the East that's going to trip up the dogs, it's going to be Tennessee. I love what Josh Heupel's doing there. They have to be more prepared for that defense this year. That was the thing. I mean, they weren't ready for that, and I think this year they will be. I think they got to play better defense as well against those guys. So I do think it's possible, and it's funny because people have in their minds what's going to happen and think they know the way college football is going to play out. Marshall beat Notre Dame. People are like, why did that happen? Well, because they were 18 to 22 years old. I don't know. Maybe the quarterback broke up with his girlfriend that night. You just don't know what's going to happen in college football.
Or it's Notre Dame. I think they had midterms that week, and we know Notre Dame doesn't.
Maybe. Right.
What is there any – so, in 2 years when it goes to 12 teams, there's going to be the top 6 conference champions getting in. But I know they're supposed to technically prioritize conference champions. But is there really any seriousness to that this year, given how much ahead of everybody else I feel like the SEC and the Big Ten are?
So, in my opinion, if you win the SEC, you're going to finish in the top 4. Because in order to survive that and win that conference championship game, you're one of the best teams in the country. I think most people would agree with that. But I also feel like the 4-team set, or field rather, allows for the potential for Wisconsin with 3 losses to upset Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, and you still take Ohio State. Or it allows for last year, K-State, TCU. TCU was one hell of a team last year. Doesn't win the Big 12. They still put them in for reasons I can continue to explain. But there's a forgiveness there, and that goes back to the non-conference schedule that I was talking about, like with Texas and Florida State, with LSU and Alabama. So all those things matter.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just going to be – it's going to be hard to sit there. I mean, my issue in 2 years is with the top 6 conference champions, given the fact that they already give priority to the conference champion, it's going to be hard for me to sit there and say the Pac-12 champion should have any sort of priority over like the 3rd or 4th team in the SEC or the 4th team in the Big Ten. And I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it depends on who it is. I mean, if USC is winning the Pac-12, they play Notre Dame, they play UCLA. Like, they have a legitimately difficult schedule. So I think it depends on, in the selection committee, who did you beat? Like, it's not rocket science, and that matters a lot.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, next year when UCLA and USC aren't in the Pac-12,
oh, right.
Yeah.
Then
I'm like, how is that conference going to have a serious champion that we could look at and say is one of the 12 best teams in the country?
Next year, yeah. No, you're right. What's left? So Oregon, Dan Lanning and Bo Nix. Well, Bo probably won't be there next year, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. They're still going to have. They'll leave when the college football playoff expands to 12 teams. So as long as the Pac-12 champion is one of the 6 highest ranked teams, they're in.
Yeah, it makes Power 5 almost irrelevant at that point.
That's true.
Heather, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. I know you got to get back, but thanks for stopping by.
My pleasure.
With Kayla Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports, this has been Heather Dinich of ESPN. That was Heather Dinich of ESPN. When we come back, we got a few more interviews with you guys that didn't make the cut last week. Again, apologies. We're having technical difficulties today, our first day back from SEC Media Days. So we're just trying to show you some things that we weren't able to show you last week from SEC Media Days. Before we get going, portions of the program are brought to you by Craft Treats. CraftTreats.com is your home for the best pet treats in the world. They even have CBD-infused treats that can minimize your pet's digestive, arthritic, or anxiety issues. CraftTreats.com. Coming back, I actually sat down and was able to speak with former Titan Blaine Bishop. We'll have that for you in a second.
And Craving Wings South North Shore location, where we've heard people say that you can get the best wings in East Tennessee. Pero ¿quién es este? El número 87, Jacob Warren.
I'll just do 6 for my sauce 87, please.
Imposible, señorita. Dale 6 más. Look at these wings. Perfectas, deliciosas, fantásticas.
Man, I don't know what you're saying, but it sounds awesome. How do you say fresh, never frozen in Spanish?
Frescas, nunca congeladas. Make your way to Craving Wings and get you 6 más.
But what was funny about Cadis, we were a full continuum of care at that time. We had detox, we had inpatient, we had outpatient. So we were doing a lot of the things that we do now. But now we just do them so much better. It's really a simple program, but we're complicated people. I am what I am, and now I got to do something about it.
You can take your life back. Call Cadis today.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Our family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Welcome back. Still got some interviews from SEC Media Days to show you guys that we did last week. I sat down with Blaine Bishop of the former Tennessee Titan, famous for helping to get them to the Super Bowl back in 1999. He's part of a radio station in Nashville now. There's a lot of great commentary on the Titans. Check him out. Right now, Blaine Bishop in 2 seconds. Here we go. Caleb Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports here, joined by 10-year NFL player, 4-time Pro Bowler, former Titan, host of 104.5 The Zone, and Titans Radio, Blaine Bishop. Blaine, how's it going?
Yeah, good. And the Blaine and Mickey Show, 1 to 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey Show, 1 to 3, 104.5 The Zone. There we go.
Yeah, that's a lot.
In Nashville.
Yeah.
Blaine, thanks for doing this.
Appreciate it, Caleb.
You live in Nashville now. We talk about, and I know you've been around here for a while, and I remember the early 2010s, there was a moment where it seemed like maybe Vanderbilt could compete with Tennessee in fan base. Okay, guys, would really like to apologize to you. The other technical difficulties right there with Blaine Bishop. Having a really rough day. While trying to get the Blaine Bishop queued up, Dave Hooker sat down and had an interview with Frank Frangie of the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, he is down in Florida, and he had a good bit to say about the Florida Gators. So I'm actually going to cue that one up and see how that turns out. We have Frank Frangie here, voice of the Jags. Dave Hooker spoke with him. 2 seconds. Excuse me.
Welcome back as we broadcast live from SEC Media Days in Nashville, Tennessee. The voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars and afternoon host at 1010XL, Frank Frangie. I think you're one of the first guys I ever interviewed. And perhaps Jimmy Himes had me talk to you to see how it would do, because you guys are good friends.
One of my dear friends in the business. In fact, I'm the one that we both were newspaper guys. I left. I talked him into leaving, so I'm responsible for him going into that radio thing for all those years. The first year they had this year was '85. My first year here was '88. The first year there was live radio at the SEC was '89, and our show in Jackson was the first show to ever go live from the SEC Media Days. By '90, the WJOX, the Birmingham station, was going live, and by '91 there were 30 of us. So we were the first show to ever go live from SEC Media Days. So I've been doing this stuff a long time, Dave, for sure.
Yeah, it's been a while, but you're only like 48, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, but I started when I was about 12.
So he'll give you the best preview of Florida, who, yes, Tennessee plays in Gainesville in September. So let's go ahead and get into that. This time last year, we were talking about Billy Napier, and if I heard the term detail-oriented one more time last year, I thought I was going to get physically ill. Is that still kind of the MO, detail-oriented, or what did you see last year that may make you have questions, if at all?
Well, I think Florida was broken. Dan Mullen didn't recruit anybody. He was a very good football coach, but wasn't much of a recruiter. So Billy Napier went in there and had to rebuild everything. That's why that detail mattered, Dave, and I think there's something to that. He had to go in there and rebuild the facilities, rebuild the infrastructure of the recruiting base. The way Kirby Smart does it, the way Nick Saban does it, the way these successful schools do it, they have gigantic staffs. They get to every player, and I think he had to build that, and I think he's doing that. It's going to take a while. They were playing last year with defensive players who don't look like they belong in the SEC. Florida's never had that. Even in the bad years, Florida's been good on defense. They were lousy last year because he had to go find some players, so they're more athletic than they've been. So I think he's going to build that thing. There's two questions. Number one, is he a good coach? We don't know. He was a pretty good coach at Louisiana for a few years. We don't know if he's a good game day coach and a developer. We hope he is, but I don't know that. My gut tells me he probably is. We haven't seen it. The other thing is, in this day and age of immediacy, and fans can't wait to fire the coach, they're going to win, what, 6 or 7 games this year probably? The over and under is 5.5. They may get to 6 or 7. Next year, they're probably playing a freshman quarterback. So it's another 7 or 8 win season. Will he be able to get to year 4 having not won 9 games in any season? You should be able to. But the question is, will they let him? Will the fans? Can Scott Strickland hold off the social media folks and all the loud folks and the noise in the system? And can he hold that off long enough to where Billy Napier gets to coach all these recruits when they're juniors and seniors? So I think he's the right guy to do it. It's going to take a while. We'll see if he's given the time to do it. That's the question.
How is the NIL collective / initiative in Gainesville better than it was 365 days ago, and not even that long with the Jaden Rashada blow up?
Well, it's better because how could it be worse? It was a disaster. It was comical. It was an embarrassment to all of them down there. They know that. They now have this thing called Florida Victorious. That's their new collective. They say it's way better. Dave, I don't know enough about how the NIL works, what you're allowed to offer, what you can't offer, what you should offer. I do know that, so I don't know. I'm far from an expert on that. What I do know is they feel better about it. They now feel they blew it. They not just the Rashada thing. They didn't have NIL figured out, and they believe they're closer to having it figured out. This Florida Victorious thing, this brand new NIL, this brand new collective, I should say, they feel like they've got the right one. Again, we'll see. I think we're all trying to sort our way through that. That's why the commissioner, Greg Sankey, here in Nashville this week was so outspoken about how Congress has to get involved, and we have to have the same rules for everybody, no matter what the NCAA wants to do, and no matter what the state governments want to do. And until that happens, everyone's going to try and sort their way through NIL. I don't think anybody's got to figure it out.
As far as Florida and what they have coming back, I felt like with Anthony Richardson last year, let's start with offense. They were kind of figuring out what he did well. They didn't have enough time to probably figure that out because he had such upside. The NFL had to have him. What do you think of them offensively this year?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of Anthony Richardson and Joe Milton when you guys watch Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
He can throw it from here to Gatlinburg. He can run 100 miles an hour. He can jump over tall buildings. But can he hit the easy throws, play in and play out, play in and play out? Anthony Richardson could do all that. He could run forever. He could throw it a mile. He could jump. He's an athlete. And he was a great kid. He was a hard worker. He's a good guy. All the things that I hear Joe Milton is. But what he couldn't do is complete the 7-yard out 10 times out of 10, because that's what you have to do. You have to complete that 7-yard out. You can't miss the easy throw. You have to hit the swing pass 100 out of 100, and that's what he couldn't do. And so I think that's what held them back. This year, they got this guy, Graham Mertz from Wisconsin. Nobody knows. He looks like, to me, the guy that's going to hit the swing pass 100 out of 100, but doesn't have a real strong arm. Isn't going to make a lot of plays above the X's and O's. So I think he'll be steady. It's no secret what they want to do. They've got two really good backs. Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne are two really good running backs. They want to run it. They want to try and play better defense, and they want to run it, and they want to get to the fourth quarter 17-13. That's what they want to do. Last year, even when Anthony was playing well, they played from behind. The Tennessee game is a perfect example. They were in that Tennessee game the whole game. The game ended when they threw an incomplete Hail Mary at the end of the game. Well, Tennessee was way better than Florida. But Anthony Richardson played above the X's and O's enough. He made great plays against Tennessee, which kept them in the game. And so I don't think you'll see that this year. I don't think Graham Mertz is going to single-handedly keep them in a game, but hopefully he doesn't have to score 45. They're going to try and play defense. They're going to try and run the ball. He's probably going to be game manager, and no quarterback wants to hear that they're the game manager, but I think he's going to be that guy, and I think that's how they're going to try and play.
So flipping to the defense, you're talking about Florida didn't have the players last year, and you're absolutely right. That's usually not a one-year fix, Frank.
That's right. And it's more of a one-year fix than it's ever been because of the portal.
True.
But it's not a one-year fix. You're exactly right. They've got two guys they really like, Cameron Jackson from Memphis, a transfer, Caleb Banks, a transfer from Louisville, who they think will be good players on the defensive front. They'll be better athletically defensively. But you're right, Dave, it's young guys. So, again, the over and under is 5.5 wins for Florida. When has that ever happened? When has Florida ever been an irrelevant team? You know, this is a team that has ran through the league in the 90s, has won 3 national championships in the last 20-some-odd years. It's been a great program that is really down. I think they'll be better defensively, Dave. They're not going to be great. They're not going to be great on either side of the ball. My guess is they're going to win the gimmies. My guess is they're not going to beat Georgia. They're not going to beat LSU. I don't think they're going to beat Utah. I don't think they're going to beat Tennessee, although the Tennessee game's there, and they tend to play well against Tennessee and Gainesville. But Tennessee's better than them, and I think Georgia and LSU and Utah clearly are. So let's say that's 4 losses. FSU, let's say there's 4 or 5 losses they're going to have. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If they win the other ones, they get to 7 wins. I think that's a good year. I hate to say that 7-5 is a good year for Florida. We've never felt that way before. But I think if you lose to the teams that are better than you, that means they've got to beat South Carolina and Kentucky and Missouri, and they may not be better than those teams. If they don't, they win 4 games. So I think that's the kind of season they're going to have.
I want to ask you kind of a little bit, because you are the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've seen Trevor Lawrence have better success under a better coach, but also just that relationship, hopefully symbiotic relationship between coach and player, because it particularly pertains to Tennessee, because you got a Hendon Hooker, it didn't work out at Virginia Tech. You got a Joe Milton, didn't work out at Michigan. How important do you believe, big picture, is that relationship, especially if it's an offensive coach and a quarterback?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, the big picture from 10,000 feet where you're going and you're dead on. The coach and the quarterback have to be on. The head coach and the quarterback have to be aligned. They have to work together well. They have to kind of like each other. They have to be able to play well together. We saw the incredible example of that 2 years in a row in Jacksonville. Urban Meyer didn't connect with Trevor. They just didn't. He was hard on him. They didn't connect. And Urban wasn't a very good NFL coach for all his college success. He really wasn't. He was a little overmatched at that level. I think everybody would agree with that. And here's Trevor, poor kid, first year in the league. Saw that. Doug Peterson is as good a quarterback coach and as good a guy as I've ever seen. I've gotten to know Doug well. He's a down-to-earth guy. He's very real. He's genuine. And he created a winning culture and a good culture. And I think the players could feel that, Dave. And I think that's one of the things that served them well. And it really benefited Trevor. Who knows where Trevor Lawrence is at? I can't wait to call the next 7 years of games, not just this year. So, and I think
Back as we broadcast live.
Stuff nobody else was doing. Spurrier, he had an that Trevor. Who knows where Trevor Lawrence is at? He made them. I can't wait to call the next 7 years of games, not just this year. So, and I think that's real important. Tennessee's situation to me is different. Number one, Josh Heupel, by all accounts, is a great guy. On top of being a good coach, he's a really good dude. Secondly, much like Spurrier, he had an offense that defenses can't practice against because nobody could replicate it. The reason Florida was so good in the 90s, they were doing stuff nobody else was doing. So it's hard to replicate it. I think Josh Heupel, because of the speed with which they play, they run to the line, they don't substitute, there's not a lot of motion, it's boom, 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 boom. It's hard for defenses to replicate that, and so you can't practice against it. So, and Hendon Hooker knew that so well. He knew exactly how to run it. Can Joe Milton run that offense the way Hendon Hooker can? He'll have a great relationship. By all accounts, Joe's supposed to be a really good guy. I know Josh is a good guy. I think they'll have a great relationship. The question I have for Tennessee is that's not an easy offense to run. Can anybody run it? I don't know. You probably know better than I do about that, but I don't know. But to your larger point, the coach and the quarterback have to be on the same page, and I think it's one of the things that'll make Josh Heupel really good because I think he will connect with just about anybody that's playing for him.
If you had to bet a mortgage payment, Billy Napier will do one. If it fell miserably, he will build up Florida but not win at the championship level, or he will win at the championship level. You got to pick one of those three.
I don't think he'll fail miserably. 2 and 3 are close. 2 and 3 are close. I'm going to say 3, but I'm guessing. I'm also a Florida guy, so I'm a little biased on that. But I think he's the right guy. I think they've had enough failure. They'll be patient. I think there's some Kirby Smart and Dabo in there. I don't know if there's any Nick in there yet, but he strikes me when I talk to him. I've talked to Kirby a bunch. I've talked to Dabo a bunch. I think there's some of that in there. He relates to kids. He relates to boosters. He's a regular guy. If you ever got to know Kirby Smart away from it, he's a regular guy that you'd love to play golf with or have a beer with. Same with Dabo. I think Billy's like that. Now, is he as good a coach? I really think right now what is about now is getting players. That doesn't mean coaching doesn't matter. Of course it matters. But Dave, there's so much good coaching now. There's no bad coaches anymore. They all know. There's good coaches now. Can you get those 4s and 5s? I think it's more important than it's ever been. So I think he will get that. I don't think he'll fail miserably. But can he build it up but not coach it? Can he build it up but not have enough time to coach it? That's a good question. I'm gonna take 3 only because you maybe take one of the 2. But I think that's the question. I'm looking forward to watching him. I really am.
Gotcha. Frank Frangie, loved visiting with him. 1010 XL and also the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coverage continues of SEC Media Days in Nashville, Tennessee. This is Off the Hook Sports.
That was Frank Frangie down in Jacksonville, who spoke with Dave Hooker. We now are finally able to get our interview with Blaine Bishop up. I'm about to share that screen with you, and we're going to get that going. Blaine Bishop played for the Titans, now has a radio show in Nashville, and has doing a lot of great things, Blaine Bishop. Before we get Blaine Bishop going, I just want to let you guys know that portions of the program are brought to you by Zen Sports. Zen Sports is a new sports book in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares. On Zen Sports, what you see is what you get. And with the cash rewards program, you get a lot of cash. For a welcome bonus, earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with the code HOOKED. That's right, unlimited 5% cash back. Keep betting and keep earning with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that. And refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume as cash rewards too. Zen Sports is bringing the cash back to Tennessee. So if you bet big on sports, you want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports, betting just got better. Now, here is former Tennessee Titan Blaine Bishop. Let's get him going now. I'm going to let it roll for like 2 seconds because the Wi-Fi takes a second to. Okay. Titans Radio NFL Play Sports here to Caleb Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports here, joined by 10-year NFL player, 4-time Pro Bowler, former Titan, host of 104.5 The Zone, and Titans Radio, Blaine Bishop. Blaine, how's it going?
Yeah, good. And the Blaine and Mickey Show, 1 to 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey Show, 1 to 3, 104.5 The Zone. There we go.
Yeah, that's a lot.
In Nashville. Blaine, thanks for doing this.
Appreciate it, Caleb.
You live in Nashville now. We talk about, and I know you've been around here for a while, and I remember the early 2010s, there was a moment where it seemed like maybe Vanderbilt could compete with Tennessee and fan base in Nashville, right? But has Tennessee just taken over now that Heupel's back? Heupel's got him back?
I don't know if it ever got to where Vanderbilt was competing as far as fan base, but yeah. I mean, there was some down times there, but Tennessee is. I think Tennessee rules the state. Even unless the Titans have it going really good and playoff contending team, this is always going to be University of Tennessee's team. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and what about the Titans versus the Vols? Was there ever a point where the Titans maybe overtook the Vols when the Vols were down about 10 years ago?
It may have. I would say so because when we first moved here in '97, it was where everybody was going to the UT games on Saturday and driving up Sunday, and then going to the Titans games. And for a while there, when the Titans had it going, and it was a little bit down for Tennessee. The Titans kind of took control. But now that Heupel's got it rolling, it's going to be an interesting discussion now.
Well, I got a really funny story for you real quick before we move to Heupel because you talked about moving down to '97. I'm from Memphis.
Oh, so you saw us play there in '97,
yes,
right?
I saw the game against the Raiders. And, Memphis is the one city that's like its own city, a little bit isolated.
Well, see, we didn't know that until we got here. And we were like, well, Memphis is almost like they're not part of Tennessee.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Yeah, that's Memphis, Tennessee.
So, yeah, if you when the Vols play at Memphis, it actually is a little more split, Tigers and Vols fans in college.
Yeah.
So I want to
huge rivalry. Yeah.
Yes, big rivalry. I want to talk a little bit about the Heupel offense, and you as a former secondary player, how you think, and I mean, obviously part of it is Georgia just had the cornerback, so it wasn't, but is that really the only way you can truly defend this offense is have the cornerbacks be fast enough to hang with the receivers?
Man. Well, also the slot guy too, so you got to have some man-to-man. Heupel's, he's really somewhat of a mad scientist, genius when it comes to, running that no huddle, fast pace, up tempo, getting the guys, off kilter, if you want to say that. And it's really tough to play against. You can come up with some analogies of some things to do. I don't even know if they would work, what I would come up. I'm not a coach, so, I really don't know. I would maybe line up 4 guys, all at the same time, and then before the snap, then move to something. I don't know if you even have time to do that, so he can't disguise. Because what happens is they look over to the sideline, then they see what you're in, and then he calls a play, and it's going to work. I mean, it's just, it's kind of, but they're doing it at such a rapid speed. Like I was counting, they run play almost, I think it was like 12 seconds. It's like, man, that's unbelievable. Like you can never do that in the NFL because guys will get hurt, banged up. It's just that's just too fast. Now you can do 2 minutes. So, but his concepts, I think a lot of those concepts would actually work in the National Football League. I just don't know if he would catch people off guard with the fast pace. But man, he's a pretty sharp guy and offensive genius. I'm going to give him that. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. What he's done at Tennessee, it's not easy. And then now I think the question is, can he continue to keep that pace and continue to win it? Because now some of it were Pruitt's players. He didn't recruit Hooker. So now can he get Milton, someone who he had come in there, and that's somebody he recruited? Can he now get those guys to perform consistently at a high level that are now his players, and then get the defense to do, continue to grow with Banks and everybody, and see if they can continue to get some pass rush as well as secondary guys to, hold the fort, because the more times they get the ball, they're almost unstoppable. Really. I mean, Nick Saban couldn't even stop. I mean, we saw it, right? It was a shootout.
Yeah, it was.
And we all know, well, he is still the GOAT, but maybe just not number one now as far as currently, but he's the GOAT of college football for sure.
Oh, yeah. I watched that game last year, and funny enough, I will never forget watching it thinking, if it wasn't for Bryce Young alone, Tennessee's probably winning that game by like 30.
Yeah, Bryce Young, he's a little, and I call him a magician. He was kind of like that point guard, but, on playing football. It was like, man, and sometimes you're just like, man, the guy that's barely 6 feet, how is he doing some of the things he was doing? So he's a pretty special player. I'm interested to see how much success he has in the National Football League, because everybody, judges everything based off of your size and everything else. But he seems to not have an issue from high school to college, and we'll see if he can do it in the pros.
Yeah, and talking about the pros, so, we talked Vols versus Titans a little while ago. You're in Nashville, which should be Titans country.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people here within the state and who cover sports in the state, myself included, feel like Hendon Hooker's got better NFL potential than Will Levis, even though Will Levis was drafted higher. Where are you going with that?
I would probably concur with that. I guess because you get to see more of Hooker. And I think what people are, taking out of context is I just think Hendon Hooker is a much sharper, polished quarterback. And when I'm talking about that, I don't need my quarterback to be off the charts athletically. I need him to be off the charts mentally. And that's where I think Hooker's got him. And you see Will Levis, he's been in practice every day, man. He's built up. He's built like a tight end. This guy can run. He can do a lot of the things Hooker can do, but he's not as quick as a thinker. He's not as accurate. He's inconsistent in his play by throwing all those interceptions. So I think Hooker, in my mind, and actually we talked about this on the Blaine and Mickey show here on 104.5 The Zone, I thought Hooker was potentially a better talent to play in the NFL than Will Levis. And we saw that didn't go that way. Hooker went third round, so what do I know? But I think there's a mental side, being that I've been in the NFL, and I think the mental side is really what took me over the top. There was a lot of guys a lot better than me, but when we got on the football field, because of my mental sharpness and capabilities to think quickly, which quarterbacks have to do, I think really put me over the top over a lot of players.
Yeah, does it seem like NFL franchises, do you think sometimes a quarterback like Hooker can get hurt by the offense he's in? Like they question the hypo offense if it translates to the NFL, but it's more about, like you said, the sharpness of the quarterback, because I think there are questions about Steve McNair's skills translating to the NFL.
Right.
But he was sharp and able to pick it up, right?
Well, it took him a minute. It took him 3 years. I think that's going to hold true until Hooker or a quarterback shows that in Hypo's offense, those quarterbacks can have success in the national football. And I think Hooker will. I really do. So until that happens, I think the NFL is always going to kind of question that and see if those, no different than even the receivers or any other position, but in particular the quarterback for sure. So Hooker has success. I think then that'll be a topic that won't be discussed ever again. All it takes is one.
That's true. I always said one of the things Hypo's offense does is manipulate the rules. I will say that one thing I distinctly remember about watching you play, you like to hit. You were kind of hitting.
It became that, yeah.
Would you be able to translate in today's NFL with your love of hitting? Because it seems like they're just cutting that out all the time.
Nah, I would definitely have in my contract every time I got fined that the team would pay for it and not me. So, then I would probably change my tack a little bit and probably go after the rock a little bit more. That was kind of my stick. I really wasn't. I was physical coming out of college. But I was a cornerback, so I was kind of I would be more of a nickel dime guy if I came out today than an actual safety, because that's where I started. And then through multiple injuries, then that moved me to safety there in my second year. So then I ended up being stuck there. And then once you have success, then
Going to let it roll for like 2 seconds.
It's a tough deal, but it's kind of getting that way a little bit in college. You got to sit out for a half or a game or two if you get a hit. So you got to be careful out there, trying to make the game safer, and naturally then that leads to all the offense getting all the breaks, and everybody's coming to watch what offense touchdown. So the NFL is no different.
Exactly. Do you think? So thinking about the SEC this season, do you think that Tennessee is at a level where they can finally? I mean, I think Georgia's better overall talent-wise. Do you think Tennessee enough where they could pull out that win at Neyland Stadium in November?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, you could say the equalizer is the offense and Hypo and his scheme and his system. So 2 years ago, Georgia and Tennessee, it was a real close game in the first quarter and a half, a little bit, until Georgia just said, you know what, we're throwing all that out, and we're going to say, you get that guy, you get that guy, you get that guy. And then their physicality, I guess, 2 years ago when they had all those guys get drafted in the first 3 rounds. I mean, all over the place on defense. So I think it is. I think it's an equalizer. So I think Tennessee's success really it's Milton. If he can be consistent and hit not the deep balls, the accuracy in the intermediate routes and the shorter passes. If he shows any consistency with that, he's going to hit some of those deep balls. There's just no way around. He's got a rocket launcher of an arm. So if they do that, I think they can beat anybody in the country.
Blaine, thanks for doing this. I know you got to get to your show, but I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
David. And with Blaine Bishop, this has been Caleb Calhoun and Off the Hook Sports.
Thank you.
That was Blaine Bishop formerly of the Tennessee Titans. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Today's show is a look back at the interviews that didn't make the cut when we were at SEC Media Days last week. We got one more. First, we're going to take a commercial break. Coming up, I was able to sit down and speak with Takeo Spikes, who has a connection to Tennessee, and it deals with a time where he nearly cost Peyton Manning his SEC championship ring. We talked a little bit about that and Auburn in general. We're going to close the show out with Takeo Spikes in 2 minutes.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place, unless you contact. Ow! Open your eyes to the beach has to offer with laser correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We are grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry, I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
When you want a hard cider that's easy to enjoy, one that's crafted to perfection, you need Tennessee Cider Company. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. With a selection of ciders free to sample, all it takes is one taste. Visit tncidercompany.com for more information, as well as to shop our ciders and merchandise online. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
Welcome back. Before I bring up Takeo Spikes, I want to say that portions of the program are brought to you by Andy Mason Real Estate. For the best practices and service in real estate in Knoxville, there's just one place, andymasonrealestate.com. Andy and his partners have been in the real estate business for a combined 40 years. They know how the market works and how to save you thousands on tens of thousands of dollars. Andy Mason at andymasonrealestate.com. We're going to close the show with an interview with Takeo Spikes, who was great. He had a lot of interesting things to say. For those who don't remember, Takeo Spikes played for Auburn, and when they faced Tennessee in the 1997 SEC title game, Takeo Spikes was actually the defensive MVP of that game, despite Tennessee winning. If you guys remember, Auburn forced 6 turnovers. Peyton Manning had a legendary comeback, arguably his best game he ever played at Tennessee. But it was a fight to win that SEC title. Tennessee won 30-29, and the reason it was a fight was because of this man right here, Takeo Spikes. We're going to speak with him now. 2 seconds. Caleb Calhoun here with former Auburn linebacker and NFL Pro Bowler Takeo Spikes. This is Caleb Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports. How are you doing today, Takeo?
Doing well, man. Doing well. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. So we cover our primarily Tennessee, our listeners, and I think that Tennessee fans very well remember you for you did about everything you possibly could to keep Peyton Manning from winning that SEC title in 1997.
I did, and I was reminded of that yesterday when I saw Coach Cutcliffe. I had the chance to see him. He's one of my all-time favorites, even though I didn't play for him. But that was a hell of a game, man. Magnificent game. Actually, to be able to win defensive MVP of the game when you lose, I think that's only happened 2 times in history. So definitely quite an honor. And anytime you get a chance to play against so many guys on that Tennessee team, I think about Al Wilson, I think about, of course, Peyton Manning, Leonard Little, who else? Jamal Lewis. Oh my God, you guys were stacked on that team.
Yeah, that there was the talent on the field that day in that game is just incredible. So you guys at Auburn now, y'all shot for the stars. You're bringing in Hugh Freeze this year.
Yep.
What do you think? How quickly do you think Auburn could compete with Alabama for the top dog in the state?
I don't see it being this year. I really don't. And just because the lack of what we don't have, Hugh Freeze addressed it yesterday. He said, look, I want to be able to compete with the upper echelon, but we're not there yet. But what I can say is we're a better Auburn. He upgraded the roster. He's created competition in rooms, from the quarterback room, the linebacker room, wide receiver. And so when you do all of that, it breeds production. So now we got a month of training camp to really see how everything shakes out, how the guys react to the coaching, and then just see who responds.
How difficult? Well, I don't want to say difficult because Auburn's one of the top one of those elite 7-8 jobs in the SEC. Where do you think it stands in terms of, from a recruiting perspective? Do you think there could be a point one day where Auburn becomes the school in the state, the primary school that everybody wants to go to?
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, I feel like we go back and forth. Now, granted, Alabama has had a dominance over the past 10, 12 years, but at the end of the day, it's all about what have you done for me lately. And I think Hugh Freeze will clearly exemplify that this year. He will surprise a lot of people, and a lot of people will be shocked to see what happens. But I don't expect for Auburn to take that next leap. Not this year, maybe next year.
Yeah, there was a time when you guys beat Alabama 6 years in a row. And there was a time, and Hugh Freeze has Alabama's number, so you guys got a really good chance.
Yeah.
This year to really even that playing field. In terms of with the SEC going to 16 teams, obviously Georgia and Alabama are rivalries that you want to keep forever, I'm guessing. But I would assume, would you love to keep things like maybe the Ole Miss or the LSU rivalry, or maybe add Tennessee, which was a rivalry back in the day?
I think it's good to have that mix-over, that crossover like that. The rivalries, that was the one thing that I was worried about with the coming up under one roof next year. Can we keep the rivalries intact? Because that's what fans look forward to. That's what players look forward to. That's what you grow up being accustomed to seeing. And I thought we as a conference did a hell of a job of being able to not only do it, but address it. And moving forward, having Texas and Oklahoma to come in to add them into the mix. So it's going to be a lot of parity. And then also, too, you now probably will have, at least you can have one loss and go in the college football playoff. Maybe that opens up the room. Maybe you have two. You don't want to lose it, but the competition is so tough inside of the SEC, especially moving forward, to where, you're going to have a lot of teams like that.
Last question before we let you get out of here. Who's playing for the SEC title this year? Have you made your picks yet?
Not yet. I'm not going to pick it yet. Why? Because I don't have to. But I will be ready to pick in August, opening weekend. Make sure you stay tuned. SEC Network, SEC Now. I'll have my picks ready then.
All right. Thanks a lot, Takeo. This has been great with Off the Hook Sports. This is Caleb Calhoun. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Caleb.
That was Takeo Spikes, former Auburn Tiger and NFL Pro Bowler. Stay tuned for his picks in August. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in for today's special show, looking back at SEC Media Days, finishing off some of the interviews we weren't able to show you last week. We will be back on in studio live tomorrow, Dave and I having our regular conversations. Please join us then with Off the Hooks with Caleb Calhoun. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.